morning. Welcome to this morning service. It's good to see people back in the Hondo again and joining us for this service. This morning we'll begin with the reading of Sambujo, followed by Juseige.
은인아
Will you please join in the reading of the three treasures? Let's see, I think we use one on page 8. Hard is it to be born into human life, and now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One, now we hear it. If we do not realize the truth in this life, when will it be realized? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we absorb ourselves in the principle of the way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves the supreme will. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we be submerged in the depth of their doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in Sangha. May we live in harmony in the great assembly as disciples of Buddha and be freed from all hindrances, becoming units of true accord in a life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through ages of myriads of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you. Please be seated. There is a story in the life of Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha, about a young mother who lost her son, who died being overcome with grief, and she sought a way to cure her son. And so she went from home to home of the people in her village, carrying her son, asking for help, for someone to be able to cure her son. And everyone wanted to help. Everyone wanted to cure her son. And so but they told her, we can't do anything. There's nothing that your son has died, and it's beyond our ability to do anything. And she went and she asked many people until finally someone said, there is a person in a forest nearby. He is supposed to be very wise, and he may be able to help you. And so they directed her to Shakyamuni Buddha. And when this young mother, Kisa Ngotami, went to Shakyamuni Buddha, carrying her son, she again pleaded to this person, asking to have him cure her son. And Shakyamuni Buddha didn't simply say, your son has died, there's nothing that we can do. Nor did he say, I have magical powers that can somehow cure your son. Rather than that, Shakyamuni Buddha said, I will help you if you bring back a single mustard seed. And Kisagotami was so happy that he was someone willing to help her. And all she had to do was to bring back a single mustard seed. But Shakyamuni Buddha said, this seed must come from a home in which they have not experienced a death. And so Kisagotami said, okay. And she began to go from house to house. And at each house, she said, I'd like to ask you for a mustard seed. And everybody was willing to give her this mustard seed to help her and her son. And then Kisagotami said, however, I can only accept this mustard seed if you have not experienced, if this household has not experienced a death. And the first place she went to, they said, my mother passed away recently, so although I'd like to give you this mustard seed, we have experienced death in our home. And so she said, okay, and she went to the next home. And again, the same question, the same request. Can I have a mustard seed to help me with my son? And with each home that she went to, the people said, no, I'm sorry, we cannot give you a mustard seed because we have in our home experienced a death. Either someone in that home or someone related to the people in that home, all had experienced death. And as she went from home to home to home, she began to realize that everyone experienced death. And so she went back to Shakyamuni Buddha, shared her experience with him, and was able to understand that death comes to everyone, and was able to bury her son. This is a very important story, and I guess there's actual I don't know if you call it documentation of this story of Kisagotami, but there are references to Kisagotami that she may have been a person that lived in the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, and that after this experience of her son's death, Kisagotami becomes a disciple of Shakyamuni Buddha and continues to study practice in Shakyamuni Buddha, with Shakyamuni Buddha. The way in which Shakyamuni Buddha addresses Kisagotami's problem, her son's death, and trying to Kisagotami with all of that hope, all of that desire, all of that power that Kisagotami has, focused on her son who has died, and that determination that she has to find a cure for her son. For us, all of us have experienced death. Perhaps someone in your families, or a friend, a close friend. We all have experienced that, and we kind of, through our experience, can understand Kisagotami's feeling. To change this thing that has happened to her, to make it right again, to return back to something that before this death was happy and it had its own complications, but certainly not like encountering the death of this child. But Shakyamuni Buddha's instructions, right, very, very interesting, not interesting, I should say, he doesn't say, no, I can't cure your son. It's foolish to think that we can turn back someone's death, that we can somehow change that and make the outcome different. But he encourages, and he doesn't say, I will cure your child if you find this mustard seed. He says, I'll help you if you bring back this mustard seed. And the help that he offers is to see things, clearly, to see things clearly, to be able to acknowledge what has happened, and that this which is in front of me cannot be turned around, cannot be reversed, and that it is something that we all are part of. When I thought of this story, when I thought about what I would speak about today, in all of the things that are going on in our world, all of the kinds of disagreements that we have with one another, whether it's in our own community, whether it's national politics, whether it's between countries, the difficulties that we cause that results from our inability to kind of have the patience to listen, have the patience to take in what the other is experiencing, to empathize with another person. And when we're unable to do that, then we close the door. Right? There's no way to approach what we are experiencing. Once we close that door, there's no opportunity for dialogue. And we just shut off what the other is experiencing from our own lives. Again, if Shakyamuni Buddha had simply told Kisagotami, no, it's not possible, of course she may say, oh, okay, it's not possible. But there wouldn't be an opportunity for Kisagotami to realize this for herself, to come to the point at which her understanding is based on her experience and her view of the world. And Shakyamuni Buddha's instructions to Kisagotami encourages her to kind of look around, to think about, to reflect on what others are experiencing. Not to simply focus on what her problem is and what she's trying to resolve. But again, the power of the intensity of Kisagotami's experience, it turns that all inward. But Shakyamuni Buddha's instructions helps Kisagotami to kind of begin to soften that and begin to see not just her problem, not just her circumstances, but be able to recognize that in the lives of others. When we get into discussions, heated discussions, or when we get into arguments, we can see that when we argue something, what happens is we kind of take up a position, right? And we say, this is the way it should be, and the other person says, no, it's got to be this way, or it can be this way. And as long as we say it has to be this way, there's no opportunity for dialogue, there's no opportunity to find something that may be outside of what we had been considering up until that point. But when we can engage in conversation, then we can begin to find perhaps not so much an agreement or a compromise, but a recognition perhaps of what we see in one another and be able to acknowledge the importance of what we see. In our dialogue, our national dialogue, there are so many issues, so many things that come up, and every time we seem to kind of begin to address or begin to resolve one of these things, something else comes up. And as we begin to resolve that thing, something else comes up, and it's a constant kind of a cycle of things moving towards resolution and then beginning to kind of unravel again. And in that process of constantly trying to find, if we only hear our own voice, then we cannot begin to work at things that are important to each of us. And when we begin to work for things that are important to each of us, then we can begin to establish this relationship that connects us, the relationship that we share as human beings. Again, going back to the story of Shakyamuni Buddha and Sakamoto, it's from 2,500 years ago that she experienced this, and the Shakyamuni Buddha instructed Sakamoto. But the power of that story is so profound that it has come down over these many years to share this insight or this way of engaging the world, this way of moving toward resolution of difficulties we might experience as human beings. I often say that Buddhism is not about Buddhism. It's not about becoming Buddha. I don't think Shakyamuni Buddha was intent on making other Buddhists. What he spoke about had to do more about what we are as human beings. And over the centuries, we have developed understanding that have been structured into patterns, and communicating those patterns sometimes have become so important that we are unable to appreciate what Shakyamuni Buddha basically talked about, which was how do we as human beings, how do we relate to one another? How do we resolve the difficulties that we cause and experience? And it begins with that very simple question. And Shakyamuni Buddha suggests that it's our own view of the world that causes us to not see others, causes us to ignore, causes us to kind of deny how others might think or feel. I think Shakyamuni Buddha's instructions are very appropriate in our times. Times so filled with disagreements, inability to kind of acknowledge the importance of another, that if we can begin to listen to others, as Shakyamuni Buddha listened to Kisagotami, then perhaps the connections that we share with one another is not based upon compromise, not based upon what I have to give up in order to talk with you, but rather is based upon the human relationships that we share, and the relationships really that we share with all life, that we can begin to acknowledge what is important beyond the differences that separate us. It's not easy. Certainly it's not something that we can simply implement. But it does take practice. It does take our willingness on our part to listen, to hear, truly hear on the other. In Jodo Shinshu, in this tradition, listening is very important. So much so that it's in the symbols that surround us. Although the chrysanthemum comes from the imperial household, that symbol of the chrysanthemum comes from the imperial household, it's also a part of Jodo Shinshu and you will see it here in the like in the lanterns, the chrysanthemum being that motif being repeated in the motif that's in the onaijin. And the reason is that kiku, the chrysanthemum is kiku in Japanese, and that kiku is to hear or to listen. The symbol of the, what is it called? The symbol of our tradition is the sagari fuji. But the kiku is something that's also repeated in the onaijin. It reminds us that how important it is to listen, to hear with our whole being. I have a tendency to listen, and as I listen, maybe not so much now, but I remember many years ago that I tend to listen, and as I'm listening, I'm thinking, oh, this is how I respond, or this is what I'm thinking, or this is how I might be able to answer this or respond to this. So it's not really listening. What I'm doing is I'm preparing to respond. Right? So to be able to listen, to hear, to truly hear, is something that that I certainly need to practice. Again, when we go back to the story of Shakyamuni Buddha and Kisagotami, had Shakyamuni Buddha simply said, oh, okay, well, why don't you go do this? That's not possible, or did something else other than what the instructions that he gave to Kisagotami. Kisagotami's understanding would have been quite different. Her experience would have been quite different. Shakyamuni Buddha's empathy, his willingness to hear Kisagotami, his deep care, compassion for Kisagotami, helped Kisagotami come to an understanding of her circumstances and allowed her to lay her son to rest. As we continue to hear, all of the kinds of difficulties that we seem to encounter, and the arguments seem to get louder and louder, hopefully we can find a way to listen, to hear the other. And sometimes it will take a long time for us to be able to engage in conversation that acknowledges the importance of each of us involved in that conversation. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for your attendance here this morning. As we close, will you please join in Gassho and Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. We'll conclude with a Gatha in Lumbini's garden, and the lyrics will be up on the screen, hopefully, and those of you who are watching can also sing this Gatha, Lumbini's garden. This morning, everything is remote. Our normal operator is here in the Hondo, but today, they're far away. Oh, there it is. Okay, we're good.
Softly blew the breezes on the glorious morn.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you for your presence here this morning and for joining us through YouTube. Next week, of course, is our Obon, a major undertaking after 2 years, three Obon. So 2 years ago, when was the last time that we had Obon, much has happened in that time, and things have had to be relearned. Things also have changed, of course. We know how change is a part of everything that we do, and our Obon also has undergone some changes. But it will begin, our Obon will begin next week, Saturday and Sunday. There will be a Hondo opening. I think the first Hondo opening, well, the Hondos will be open from 11:30 on Saturday and on Sunday. But the festival begins, I think it begins at noon, right, on Saturday and Sunday. So please be careful when you come, and, but come and enjoy the Obon, which we have not been able to be a part of for such a long time. Again, thank you very much, everyone, for your presence here in the Hondo, as well as viewing online. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye. Oh, please come forward for a shoko.